Okay, guys, so the next few weeks in class we're going to be talking about state government. What we're going to do today is I'm going to give you guys a little bit of background information on state government, what that looks like, how it's set up, and then at the end we'll talk about what we're going to be doing in class so you guys can prepare. A state government has a state constitution. Each state has its own constitution set up pretty similarly to the national constitution. The Constitution lays out the powers and the structure of the state government. It's usually much, much longer than the national constitution. They also have amendments. A state constitution has a preamble, a Bill of Rights, articles that describe the separation of powers between the executive, legislative, and judicial branches, and a framework for setting up local governments. So very similar to the United States Constitution, usually longer, but the setup is the same. Also, the state government has a lot of powers. We talked about in class with the national government that the states have the powers. The 10th Amendment of the National Constitution says the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. So states have a lot of power. The state government has, like I said, all the power that the federal government doesn't have. Some of these powers include ownership of property, education of the inhabitants of the state, implementation of welfare and other benefits, and programs and distribution of aid, protecting people from local threats, so like the police departments, that kind of thing, maintaining a justice system, so there's state courts, that type of stuff, setting up local government, such as counties and municipalities, so if you have a mayor or a county court, that's all set up by the state government. Maintaining the highways and setting up the means of administrating local roads, so the highways in the state, the roads in the state, how those are taken care of, what they look like, all of that is set up by the state government. They regulate government and industry in the state, and they raise funds to support the activities that the state wants to do. So any sort of state parades, that kind of thing, is set up by the state government. They are in control of that. Also, the state government has the power of grants and mandates. A grant can come in two ways. One is a formula grant, which is a grant that's given to anyone who can meet a certain guideline. And two is a project grant, grants given to those who make special requests for aid. So a formula grant might be a grant given to anyone who goes to college or anyone who works in a certain industry. A project grant, a lot of times teachers like me will request these specific grants, and they can come from the state government. A mandate is a requirement set by the national government to force states to perform a specific action. So if the national government says all the states have to enact their militia, then the state has the power to make that mandate happen. So the national government will issue a mandate, the state government makes it happen. The structure of the state government is set up with three branches, just like the national government. Like the national legislature, both the Senate and the House of Representatives have a presiding officer. In the Senate, it's the lieutenant governor, and the majority leader, so if it's the Democratic Party has the majority, it's him, or Republican Party, it's her, the leader of the Republican Party, has most of the leadership roles. The House of Representatives, however, elects a speaker who serves as its leader. Leaders of the Senate and the House of Representatives are responsible for recognizing people who are going to speak during debate, referring bills to certain committees, and presiding over deliberations. In the Senate, in the state Senate, terms last 4 years. The size of the Senate ranges based on each state, and in the House of Representatives, sometimes we call that the General Assembly. I will probably call it the General Assembly when we talk about it in class. In the rest of this video, the size is way different, and it's usually larger than the Senate. The executive branch. We have the governor. The governor is the leader of the executive branch, and he serves either 2 or 4 years, depending on the state. The governor is chiefly responsible for making appointments to the state agencies or offices. These powers include the ability to appoint a specific post in the executive branch, so he can name like the Secretary of State, that kind of thing. He also fills a vacancy. If any elected official dies, he appoints the person that gets elected. He draws a budget and has clemency over the military powers, which means he's in charge of the state government, that kind of thing. The state military, that kind of thing. He also has veto power. So like the president, if the Senate or the House of Representatives passes a bill or something, he can veto it. He has that power. But a veto can be overridden by 2/3 or 3/4 majority. So 2/3 of the Senate or 3/4 of the House of Representatives. We also have the lieutenant governor. Lieutenant governor, he basically succeeds the governor if the governor dies or something happens to him, and he presides over the Senate. He doesn't have a lot of other power. However, in a lot of places, the lieutenant governor and governor are elected separately, including our state until recently. The Secretary of State presides over the public records and basically advises the governor on important state matters. So the governor might have decisions to make. He'll go talk to the Secretary of State about what the best decision to make might be. The last important to us executive branch position is the Attorney General. And basically the Attorney General represents the state in all court cases, so he'll be like the prosecutor against the defendant, and he will represent the state, or assistant attorney generals oftentimes will show up in court cases that aren't of the most importance. The last of the three branches in state government is the judicial branch. The judicial branch consists of trial courts, the Court of Appeals, and the state Supreme Court. The Court of Appeals was created to hear most types of appeals from the circuit court and the family court. So those would be like your regular court cases. And if you lose, you can appeal to the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals is the judicial system's newest court, and it didn't start until 1983, so it's pretty new, but it's kind of a buffer in between trial courts and the Supreme Court. It has the state Supreme Court, is the highest court in the states. The justices are elected by the General Assembly, and they have a chief judge and 8 associate judges who are elected by the General Assembly. They can hear appeals, or they have original jurisdiction. So if it's a very important matter, the Supreme Court might just go ahead and hear out that court ahead of time, and it's the ultimate authority in the state court system. Now, if you go to the South Carolina Supreme Court, you lose your case. You can appeal to the United States Supreme Court, but you're probably not going to make it that far. Education. Another important title or responsibility of a state government is education. It's carried out mostly on the state and local levels. We will elect the state superintendent in our state. It's mostly, however, done on the local level. Like, you have a school district. In each school district, the school board is the most responsible party. The school board members are elected by the public, so when you go vote, you guys aren't old enough to vote, but when I vote for a school board member for my specific area, and they represent our interests. The school boards have many roles. They include administering general district policy, making sure the district is in tune with the local interests. They hire or fire the superintendent, and the superintendent is the head administrator within a school district. So he has authority in the school district. He hires and fires principals, that kind of thing, but the school board hires him. The school board also drafts a budget. They oversee the principals. They do administration. They communicate with the chief of state school officials. They distribute state funds. They establish teacher certification requirements. They define the length of the school day. They decide how nutritional school lunches should be, that kind of thing. So the school board has a lot of power in the education system as far as decisions made on the local level. And that's for each district has its own school board. Now, what we're going to do in class over the next couple of weeks is we will set up our classroom like a state government. We're going to elect state officials, including the governor, the lieutenant governor, members of the Senate, representatives for the General Assembly, and state superintendent of education. Now, we'll talk a little bit more in detail about those in class, but just be thinking about which one you like to do. These officials will research their responsibility and carry them out throughout the unit. So whatever you decide, whatever office you decide to run for, you will be elected to maybe. And if you get elected, then you'll have to carry out those offices for those responsibilities for your office throughout the next couple of weeks of class. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk through this. Hopefully, we will learn together about state government. If you are not elected to an office, you're going to be appointed by the governor, and I will help whoever the governor is make appointments to other things that will be pertinent and important in our class. So be prepared, start thinking about which offices you might want to run for, and I will see you guys in class next week.